time for Bill and Ted
to face the music. I don't know, guys.
We loved it. We absolutely loved it.
Of course we did.
Cheers!
Well, not of course, I should say.
No, it's not of course. Yeah. Like we were almost stressing because it's not like there's a good track record of movies coming back 30 years later and being great, you know?
Yeah.
Like Mad Max Fury Road. Cool, good job on that one, but like...
That's a rare one.
Yeah, anything like Clerks or, you know, like it's like there's a lot of movies where they're like, ooh, if we could just earn a little extra money off of this thing, just beat that dead horse. Bill and Ted would be a prime candidate for that.
Yes.
This made with love.
Bill and Ted does such a great job of bringing the first and the second movie all together in a third movie that accumulates in something that is very Bill and Ted.
Be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes.
Here's the magical part, is that it kept the kind of positive enthusiasm and fun-loving vibe of the first two.
Yes.
And just moved it forward, and they're older, and the audience is older. They don't overdo any of the old gags.
Yeah.
Like, I was worried we're gonna see them trying to do Twister with Death again. Like, there's nothing like that.
Hey, Death.
They just try to have a new adventure for these now older dudes that, you know, haven't quite grown up.
I think modern movies don't understand what a nod to the past is quite as well as Bill and Ted Face the Music does. Everything, there are great nods to everything, like George Carlin in the beginning, and you know, I think the tackiest one is them yelling "station" for no reason.
Yeah. They do a random moment like that, and that was the only one. That was really the only moment I was like, yeah, okay.
But everything else is like, oh, we're going through familiar beats, let's say, from the first two movies, but they're not the exact same thing.
Yep.
Is he playing hopscotch by himself? Dude, he's cheating.
They really did a great job of letting us kind of be with the characters while still introducing, you know, their daughters. And that was what I was curious about. Like, you know, Bill Jr. and Ted Jr. were girls from the second movie.
Yes.
This is little Ted. And this is little Bill.
Wilhelmina and Theodora.
Yeah, which is fantastic. And they don't take over the movie, but they have their own little side journey in the movie.
We're putting together a most extraordinary band.
The girls are a great addition to the movie without overpowering, because if this just became about the daughters only, I would have been bored because I want to see Bill and Ted. I mean, that's who we're here for 30 years later.
I'm Bill S. Preston, Esquire. And I'm Ted Theodore Logan.
Here's a funny little like real world side thing that I loved, is that Samara Weaving is one of the daughters, who is Agent Smith's real life, Hugo Weaving's real life daughter.
It seems that you've been living two lives.
Basically, you know, real life Agent Smith's daughter is now Neo's niece in Bill and Ted world. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, that's really, there's something beautifully Bill and Ted about that, like bringing peace to the universe.
One of these lives has a future.
But let's talk about Keanu and Alex Winter dusting off the characters from way back.
That they haven't played in 30 years, and like going further, Keanu hasn't played that type of character in 30. He really, like, in the mid-90s, okay, he was kind of action stuff, but maybe still bro action thing.
Yuppie insects like me shouldn't be surfing your break and all that, right?
Well, it's funny, I don't think of him as stuffy, but he's played serious stuff forever now.
Yeah, like 20 years now, he's kind of played like very stoic, you know, like action guy.
And here I'd feared you'd left all this behind.
And Keanu is fine. Like, I thought he was fine, and
it's a solid job of kind of getting back in the converse of Ted.
They wrote the role very well for, I think, who Keanu is now. That he's kind of the one who's a little less hopeful, and he's a little more unsure of, you know, are they making the right choices? Are they ever going to write the song that's going to unite the world? He's got the uncertainty.
We've spent our whole life trying to unite the world, and I'm tired, dude.
But Alex Winter
kills it.
Oh, he's the heart of the thing at this point, and
he's Bill through and through.
How is that stealing?
If we're stealing it from ourselves, dude.
I loved every moment of Alex Winter on screen. The script, obviously, it feels like a Bill and Ted movie. There's this ridiculousness, but there's also this just kind of charming simplicity to things.
Yeah.
And Alex Winter just nails it. There's times where you just gotta say like, yeah, this is what we gotta do. And you're just like, yep, this is it. I'm in. I believe it. I'm in.
We have a destiny to fulfill.
It's all the little things about his performance. Like, man, he hasn't missed a beat. Again, like you said, Keanu felt like he was warming up. He was warming up, and I felt like he was into like fully Ted by the end or whatever. But no, Alex Winter absolutely nailed it. Great job, buddy.
Yeah, and
thanks for doing it. I appreciate it.
And we're going to be spoiler free for the majority of it, but we're going to, I think, maybe move into a little bit of slight spoiler territory. Though this movie's not really much to spoil. It's a Bill and Ted movie. There's not much going on.
I mean, the trailer tells you what the movie's about. That's like the movie.
And save reality as we know it.
It was fun seeing them both also get to play future versions of themselves.
Yeah.
It was almost like, a Christmas Carol or something where it's like, the ghost of future Keanu and Alex Winter. And what I loved about it was it got to show a little range for them. They got to play like angrier, versions of themselves. But that was kind of the bad guy. And that's so perfectly Bill and Ted. The antagonist is their future cynicism. If they can't figure out how to write this song, if they can't figure out how to get their lives together, it's that future cynicism is the enemy. And I was like, wow, how profoundly excellent.
Yes.
This is definitely a Bill and Ted lesson. This is a Bill and Ted theme.
In true Bill and Ted fashion, there really isn't a villain. In the second movie, sort of, but they kind of use time travel to get around it and dismiss it.
Like we're done.
But the bad guy in the first movie is getting a history test done, and having to go to boot camp, like we said before.
Or it's like dad not approving of my life choices, which I love that they paid off in this movie.
Bill, Ted, enough of the delusion.
Yes,
they have him and dad finally have their understanding of each other. I was like, oh, we're really paying off beautiful moments that were like, oh, dad doesn't get me, and it's like finally, 25 years later, his dad finally gets him. It was like super great moment.
Yeah, they paid off a lot of things, I think, emotionally, and like with the characters and the friendship, and again, all the nods that just didn't make you feel like rolling your eyes, like, oh, we're doing this thing again.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
The movie doesn't feel like a rehash. It feels like a legitimate, honest, fun addition to, the Bill and Ted saga now, as it were.
If you want to see more Bill and Ted, this is absolutely worth your time. If you don't care about Bill and Ted, you probably won't care about this movie, but that's okay. Like, it's absolutely made for people who love the first two movies and want a respectful, new but charming and unique addition to the whole thing.
Yeah. Let's rock!
I think how Bill and Ted 1 is about time travel, and then they threw that away to then do, a death journey in the second one. That how they tiptoed through that kind of danger zone of like creating an entirely new premise for the movies. They kind of did that all over again with this one, where they're like, well, now we'll just take all of those elements and put them together. And I like how the daughters basically go on the Bill and Ted 1 adventure, and then they get forced into the Bill and Ted 2 adventure while they're having Bill and Ted 3 the adventure, and it all comes together.
Dina! Billy! Dad! How you doing?
Well, we're dead and we're in hell.
I think my big criticism of the movie is they, of course, punted the opportunity to write the greatest song that unites all of time and space, because how do you do that? Spoiler, they have a generic kind of follow along where everyone plays along, and it makes sense.
Which is like slightly disappointing, but also so in character.
Yeah.
It's like, I think that's my feelings on the end. It was like, well, that was not exactly, pleasing, but it's also so perfectly Bill and Ted.
I just think you need the audacity that is the egos of Kiss, like Gene Simmons being like, I will write the greatest rock song that ever existed. And they kind of did for the Bill and Ted universe.
We literally put on God Save Rock and Roll after the movie. We're like, let's go listen to it before get ourselves hyped up for doing this review. the second movie has such a perfect, it's Kiss being super over the top, awesome, writing the music. They don't show up, but like they did, they did that closing track. You know, you thought might be the one that unites the world. It wasn't. This one, it didn't quite hit the same highs as Bogus Journey, I guess is what I'm saying. Like it's not going to end quite as strong as Bogus Journey does, but it's still great.
Yeah, nothing about this movie felt like people just standing in front of like shot, reverse shot, green screen, board, phoning it in. And not like the emotional... At the end of this movie, I kept thinking how out of it I should be. How bored and kind of corny and just like, oh, we're phoning in the emotional triumph or whatever. And I never felt that way. I was like, oh, I love everyone. This is making me just happy inside.
I totally agree. I was at no point emotionally disappointed.
Bill and Ted, what have you got to say for yourselves?
I remember always rewatching Excellent Adventure and getting disappointed with the ending when it's just a history report.
It's like,
because, you know, as a kid, you watch them both and you kind of start mixing which scenes are where.
Sure.
And it's always like Bogus Journey had probably the best ending of all three movies. It really was the ending. And, you know, it's to their credit that they, you know, got this thing going again and it feels good. It feels natural. Like they didn't ruin such a great ending in Bogus Journey.
Absolutely. Here's another thing that the choices they made, like I love that Bill and Ted stayed with the princesses and that they matter so much to them. Like it's not just they need to save the world and space-time collapsing on itself, but also they need to save their relationships, not because like their wives have become, you know, shrews and hate them, but because they want to see them be better versions of themselves.
When your wives suggested couples therapy, do you think that this is what they had in mind?
Definitely. I mean, we're a couple of couples, right?
You know, these women have been by their side, cheering them on for 25 years.
They traveled through time
for them. But they also want to see them become, you know, the best versions of themselves. And, you know, so I loved how sincere everything stayed to kind of the ethos of Bill and Ted.
I'm in love, dude.
The only complaint I had was that it felt like there was a subplot that it maybe the princesses the princesses kind of they go on their own little time travel thing, and it seems like we could have and should have seen a little more of that. They show up at a couple points and there's spoiler territory now, like there are like older versions of the princesses that are like taking them around, and I wonder honestly if, you know, 6 months from now there's going to be an extended edition of the movie that's going to maybe cut back in some of that, because clearly there's something written there somewhere in a draft that I assume got shot, that maybe they were like, we got to keep this tight 90 minutes, and they maybe cut out 15 minutes that I think could be really beneficial to the story when they're ready to make round 2 of like, you know, like.
I think the smart thing was keep the movie at tight 91 minutes, which it was. Oh, and I also like the movie is constantly referencing how much longer the movie has left. Like the deadline, the ticking clock in the movie is basically the
length of the movie.
The duration of the movie.
They're like, oh my God, at exactly this time, we have, you know, 27 more minutes before we're like, oh my God.
And you can pause it and see
like,
there's 27.
Dude, we better write that song now.
You know, that's the fun of these movies, is the tongue-in-cheek nature of it, which is kind of what makes the like unbelievable parts of it fun and believable, and you know, time traveling and death and
all of that Kid Cudi philosophizing about you know, space and time. Shout out to like William Sadler coming back and reprising his role as Death.
Life, it isn't a wild stallion.
There was so much in this movie that was just like really came from the heart, that you're like, that these people reprising their roles, new people coming in, you know, joining the Bill and Ted collective.
Whoa. Greetings, my excellent friend.
Face the Music does what I think Bogus Journey did really well, which is like you start it and you think like, oh, I'm just gonna get this silly comedy, but then there's a bunch of like scenes that are slower and setting up how there's some friction with the princesses, and we're worried about our daughter's future, and stuff where it's like the movie, they start you with some funny, but then they give you about 15 minutes, 20 minutes of like, hey, we're just gonna slow down and hang out with them, and then it ramps all back up again and gets weird.
And spoiler again, there is a beautiful scene of middle-aged Bill and Ted with their old selves, you know, like having this both hilarious moment of like, oh, you know, I feel like I didn't even know you. And it's kind of, you know, touching, but also ridiculous because like, well, yeah, of course, it's you, it's future you, like.
It's a little on the dark side, but you know, that's cool.
I think all of us are, you know, we're always grappling with being hard on ourselves or how we see ourselves and kind of, you know, all that stuff. And them talking to their older selves was like, you're always there for me. And it was just, it's really touching. I can't imagine an adult watching this and not feeling like, legitimately feeling, oh man, like I gotta connect, you know, it's like connecting with the self, and it's kind of like Bill and Ted had the opportunity to do it, and of course they do it in such a loving, fun way.
Frankie, you're excellent.
You're excellent, buddy.
Be excellent to each other.
We loved Bill and Ted Face the Music. Huge recommendation.
Huge recommendation. Huge recommendation if you love this review is give us a little like, give us a subscribe, come around for more. We're gonna keep reviewing things, you know, like Bill and Ted in the future, but not Bill and Ted because we run out of movies.
That's right.
This is the last movie, but there's more coming up soon. And stick around through the credits. There's an awesome scene after the credits that you have to watch.
Definitely.